Well, hey, everybody. Just got done with a very interesting Qatar Grand Prix. Not because the racing was all that good. In fact, it really wasn't very good at all. But, man, there were some real strategic blunders. And when we talk about blunders, let's talk about McLaren. What on earth were they thinking? If you didn't see the race, basically what happened is that Oscar had gone out into the lead, followed by Max with Lando in third, and the basically Lando had made an okay start, but he started on the outside. Track was dusty, and Verstappen just got the better of him going into the first turn, which was pretty normal. That's to be expected, especially a track like a Qatar where the dust is just very, very strong. And it seems like the cars are always kicking up dust, just because they're out in the middle of the desert, I guess. But anyway, on lap 7, there was a coming together in turn 1 between Pierre Gasly and Nico Hülkenberg, and it put Hülkenberg out of the race. Gasly had to go to the pits, repair damage. He was never much of a factor, even though, surprisingly, he had qualified in the top 10. And was looking actually pretty strong for a change. I'm not sure what had happened, but they found something on that car, and it certainly performed very well. Anyway, be that as it may, that happened on lap 7. Shortly after that, the safety car came out, bunching up the field for to clean up Hulkenberg's car, which was beached in the gravel. And sure enough, the entire field, except the McLaren's, went in and changed tires and went and put a fresh set of tires on. So at lap 8, they were on fresh tires. Now, the thing about this particular race, and I don't think McLaren completely took advantage of this or considered this, but the rules were, because of the history of this track and the way it tore up tires and all that, it really seemed like the rules just called for you had to go and put no more than 25 laps on a set of tires, which meant that the McLarens would have to come in on lap 25, but the other guys, because they had already run 8 laps in the race, they would need to come in on lap 33. And so basically what happened is that the time deficit when you pit under green at that track is about 26 seconds, whereas if you pit under the safety car, you're looking at a 16-second time differential. From the time you enter pit lane to the time you exit pit lane, it's about 16 seconds. So the differential between the green flag versus a pit stop versus a pit stop under the safety car was about a 10-second delta. And sure enough, McLaren did not come in. And so when the race resumed, they were doing everything they possibly could to build up as big a possible gap over Max Verstappen, who was in third place. And it just wasn't enough. And when they pitted, both Oscar and Lando were put in a position where they were further down the field and had to carve their way back up. And even with extra pit stops from the other drivers and all that, they were done. The Red Bulls, or at least the Red Bull of Max, he stayed out, didn't have to pit again because he pitted on lap 33. The race was 57 laps. So, he was in a position where he only had to do one extra pit stop and he was done, whereas the McLarens, they still had 2 stops to make. And so anyway, just a huge strategic blunder. Max, of course, waltzed off into the lead with clean air. And once Max and that Red Bull get clean air, it's pretty much game over. And so at the end of the day, Oscar finished second. Carlos Sainz took a very good third place. This was the first time that Williams had scored 2 podiums in one season in 10 years. Think about that. So it was a really, really big deal for Williams. I was really glad to see that. I really like James Vowles, and I really like Carlos. So I was really glad to see them have that success. Lando made a last-minute pass on Kimi Antonelli, who had been holding him off very, very well. But Kimi made a mistake on the last lap, and Lando got around him and finished fourth, and crucially picked up an extra 2 points in the championship. And, Red Bull after the race, Helmut Marko and Laurent Mekies both made some comments they kind of hinted that Antonelli had let Lando by, which then apparently lit off all the haters on social media. And Red Bull eventually issued an apology, said it was not right to go and, make hateful statements towards Kimi and all that kind of stuff, because when you watch the onboard replay, he didn't let him by. He made a mistake. And so anyway, just a really silly kind of deal on that one. This was a sprint race weekend. Oscar certainly did what he needed to do until race day. He won the pole for the sprint race. He won the sprint race, and then he won the pole for the race. And then, McLaren just blundered on strategy. I mean, this is 2 races in a row now where McLaren has screwed over both of their drivers. Back in Las Vegas, they allowed the cars to porpoise too much, which then caused too much grinding of the plank underneath the car. And both cars were disqualified, which really hurt both drivers in their championship aspirations. And then they did this horrible strategy call and pitted their drivers way after the other guys had pitted. So anyway, I don't know what on earth they were thinking, but McLaren had better get it together, because Abu Dhabi is this coming weekend. And if Oscar and or Lando do not win the World Championship and Max sneaks in to win it, it will be because McLaren gave Max a 5th world title, not because, Max carved his way through the field. He just took advantage of McLaren's mistakes. And he said as much. He said, the only way I'm winning the World Championship is if McLaren screws up. And so anyway, I thought that was a really interesting deal. The race itself was, pretty predictable. I mean, Ferrari, oh my goodness, they suffered greatly at Qatar this weekend. The tires on the cars were mandated to run very high tire pressures, around 28, 29 pounds, which is more like a passenger tire. I don't know for sure what the F1 tires normally run at, but in my experience, that's roughly double or maybe a little bit more than double what a normal racing tire would run at. So Ferrari just wasn't able to adapt to it. And they were just horrible this weekend. I hope that things get better and they finish on a better note, because this is 2 races in a row where Lewis is just walking around going, this is by far my worst season ever. And so anyway, I really hate to see that, but, hopefully they can get it together. I think all of the drivers are going to be really glad to see this ground effect era go away. A lot of them have recently been complaining about having back trouble just because of the porpoising and the car bottoming out against the track. And so, I like the chassis regulations for 2026. I hate the engine regulations for 2026. So we'll see what happens. All other than that, really about the only thing that can be said is that Fernando Alonso was absolutely stellar. Made that Aston Martin punch way above its weight in qualifying. Predictably, he fell back in the race on both occasions, but he scored useful points in both races. And really, other than the Williams of Carlos Sainz, he was the only, we'll call it top 4 team car in the mix all weekend long. So really impressive to see. And we'll see what happens in Abu Dhabi. I mean, we're only less than a week away from crowning a world championship or a driver's world champion. And I'm fascinated to see exactly what's going to happen here. Thanks for joining in, and you'll be hearing back from Sabrina and I with our monthly and final race review of 2025 in about a week's time.